Nolan Smith, I don't think there's any way to talk about his rookie season without calling it disappointing. Now, he was a guy that you brought in, you knew he needed some time, but I still think it's probably disappointing that you draft a guy in the first round and he only plays 183 snaps. And so we can start there. He had 85 pass rush snaps, 75 run defense snaps, and then he had, Sean Desai and Matt Patricia were obsessed with dropping him into coverage at times as well, despite him having no clue what to do when he was put there. But he had 15 tackles, 1 sack, 9 pressures. He had a 1.2% sack rate that ranked 73rd among 88 edge rushers, and an 11.1% pressure rate that ranked 52nd. His PFF grades are abysmal. He ranked 87th in run defense and pass rush grade. He was 40th in run defense grade. Jonny, I'll throw it to you first this time. When you look at Nolan Smith, you can talk about what you thought about him pre-draft, what we saw rookie season, and what do you think his role is going to be in 2024?
Yeah, I wanted to start with this one because I'm not very controversial. I already have hot takes. But I'm going to play sort of a little bit of devil's advocate this time and maybe get you guys to talk me off the ledge. I did not like Nolan Smith as a pass rusher pre-draft. I annoyed everyone on BGN when I said in my film review, I'm not sure if I could see him as a sort of an edge rusher or an off-ball linebacker, and said I might let him do both, and everyone went mad in the comments. They didn't like the word off-ball linebacker next to Nolan Smith. I don't really think I changed my opinion, so I'm going to be a little bit exaggerative here, but essentially this is what I saw when I watched him, and I'm interested to see what Nick and Eric thinks. I know Shane was probably a little bit higher on Nolan Smith than I was. So based on Twitter, everyone seems to love this guy still. Like, when you hear it's all scheme fit was terrible last year. The guy's athleticism, the guy's talent will win out, and I really, really hope it does. And I think he's obviously a very, very good athlete. I mean, the testing backed that up. I do not see a pass rusher. Like, I didn't see any pass rush moves last year. I didn't see the ability to bend the edge, despite the fact athletically it says he can do it. I didn't actually see it on tape. Most of his pressures were unblocked. I think his sacks were unblocked. He plays very hard. He's very physical. He's got a very high motor, so everyone really, really likes him. But what terrified me was the whole point of Nolan Smith, in my opinion, is versatility. The idea that you can rush, you can drop, you can cover. He couldn't drop. Like, straight up, every snap where Nolan Smith dropped into coverage was a disaster. Like, athletically, he could do it, but instinctively, there was nothing there. Like, he didn't seem to have a clue where QBs were looking. He sort of had his eyes on receivers and the ball's being thrown past him, or he's staring at the quarterback and there's a guy running in like a yard behind him. There was just no natural ability to play coverage. And that's a little bit terrifying for me, because I don't think he's going to suddenly wake up and be a brilliant pass rusher. Like, I don't think he's stick him on the edge, let him bend the edge, let him rush quarterback every third and long. I think he has to be a guy who is a bit of an unpredictable chess piece. He's a little bit of, sometimes he'll drop. Yes, he can play against the run despite being undersized. And I'm obviously being maybe a tad exaggerative here to prove my point. But I didn't really see anything. Like, in preseason, he had that unbelievable play where he ran someone down backside, and you could just see the athleticism, and everyone was like, oh yeah, here we go. And I thought, right, yeah, I'm going to get this wrong. This guy's going to be a stud, isn't he? And then as I'm watching him more each week, I see the athleticism, but I don't really see a good football player. And that can change. But I'm really interested as someone, and I've not watched any of you guys' stuff on him deliberately because I'm about to write about him, and I don't like to be sort of influenced, I guess, by others. Otherwise, it sort of defeats the object of what I do. So I'm interested whether you guys saw similar things or whether you think I am way too harsh. So yeah, Shane, whoever you want to start with, I'll throw it to you as hosting me. That was sort of my gut feeling on Nolan Smith. I would say I'm a little bit concerned, basically.
All right, Nick, can you talk Jonny off the ledge, or are you up there with him?
He's a rookie, so I'll give you that. You know, there's room to grow, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I talked about looking at real pressure rate and taking out all those unblocked pressures and cleanup pressures. PFF had him 7 of his 8 pressures were either unblocked or cleanup. When you, like you were saying, Jonny, I don't really know what his go-to pass rush move is. Well, I kind of do. It looked like it was a long arm bull rush, which doesn't really fit in with who he is physically, athletically. He should be using more speed rush moves like cross chops, swipe moves. I did a video last year on how he should implement a ghost technique, and he got close to hitting one against the Bills. I think he got held on that play, didn't get called, but I just didn't understand the pass rush game plan that they were having him use. and it was very confusing. So I hope to see better steps towards that. But we have to see that play out on the field. I like you said, Johnny, I don't know if he's gonna overnight. I don't expect him to switch up and all of a sudden he's a superstar. And to be honest, if he doesn't play better, I don't know if he's even going to be third in snaps at this point in time. Brandon Graham was really effective in his limited playing time. And at the end of the day, when the coaches are in the heat of the battle and they need to win a game, yeah, do you like to think about long-term and getting guys some snaps? Yes, but you have to win games, and you're going to put the guys out there that are going to give you the best chance to win the game. And if he doesn't improve a little bit, then I don't know if he's going to get there. Just to look at where his numbers were, of the top 150 rookies and over the past 5 years, at the edge position, his real pressure rate was 148th out of 150. There's not a whole lot of players around there that really hit those numbers and then became good players later. There's a few examples. Van Ginkel was a player like that who was very similar to Nolan early in his career, and then he turned it on later. Boye Mafia is a good example from the Seahawks. He had a rough rookie year, really turned it around his next year. So there are examples. And Nolan is an athletic outlier. Some of that stuff that we're talking about, especially in coverage, I'd like to say a lot of it was coaching. And I mean, if you look at the entire defense, they all had issues across the board. So hopefully it's that, and getting with some better coaches can help him. But athletically, he has a lot of the stuff that you want out of a hybrid player. Yes, he's a little smaller, but we've seen players like that succeed. So I hope that we can see him take the right steps. I'd at least like to see a much better pass rush game plan this year. Just all those long arm bull rushes he was using, it just doesn't fit his play style. So I don't know why they kept using it. But so I'm not the guy that's going to be like, yeah, he's going to turn it around this year. I don't know about you, Eric, if you have a better sense on that.
I don't either. I think, sometimes you have, like, he was dealing with the shoulder injury in college, and then also I believe it was the same shoulder he re-injured in the Seahawks game. So sometimes you like to look for excuses of like why they weren't better, but that wasn't even the problem. Jonny mentioned it, really bad awareness in coverage and no pass rush repertoire to speak of. Now, I think one of the reasons he went so high, yeah, obviously he was an athletic outlier, but the first thing you think about is for guys who are extremely fast as edge rushers is, oh, they're terrible against the run. And then one of the scouting reports about him was he was actually really good against the run. So to me, that probably led him to being overvalued on their board. I think he can be better in run defense than he showed last year. Like Jonny, I'm very skeptical of his pass rush outlook. Nick mentioned a few moves that he think he should add to the bag. There's two specifically that I'm honing in on, is the ghost move. And for people who are unfamiliar, this is basically like you briefly shoot your arms out to try to get the tackle to engage, and then you just dip around them. And then the other is just like an inside counter, because his agility is really good. And if he can beat the guy like inside, he's fast enough where it's hard to like get hands on him. Although one of the things is, even if you are beating a guy to the inside, if they push you, that can completely throw you off of your pass rush track. So, it's going to be tough for him to become a starting level pass rusher. So, I view him as more of like that sub package guy. You can even bring him in as like an extra lineman, especially in these odd fronts where they have 5 linemen. Often you're going to see the weak side guy dropping into small little zones. And, when he was trying to mark guys down the field or getting depth on his zone drops, it was really looking bad. But if he can stay close to the line of scrimmage, it's like you can't mess up that bad, and then his athleticism can shine. So that's where I see him excelling. But overall, I'm also skeptical about him, but of course, wishing the best.
Yeah, I think if you want to know why he got drafted where he did, it's the ridiculous athleticism. I mean, guys that, of course, guys his size wouldn't have been an edge rusher 20 years ago either, and that's a whole different thing. Defense is getting smaller and faster, but it's just incredible his speed, and if he can harness that and turn it into becoming a good pass rusher, obviously that's the goal, and you get the old adage, that you can't teach speed, and you can teach everything else, and we'll see if that's true. But like Eric mentioned, he's such a weird profile that he is such a small, fast guy who can't rush the passer and is a good run defender. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But he is a strong run defender, and maybe not like league-wide, but for his size, for sure, and definitely compared to, Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick last year, their run defense was awful. But one play that really showcases his athleticism that I'll throw up here. This is him off of the edge, and it's a read option play that the Cardinals run, and he's going to go over the top of the pulling tight end, which tells Kyler to pull the ball, and then he still gets a hand on Kyler, and he's not able to bring him down. But like, there are very few edge defenders in the NFL that can go over the top of that tight end, commit as hard as Nolan Smith does, and still get out and get a hand on Kyler Murray. So there's athletic giftings that are there. But all of that said, you guys mentioned it, he can't rush the passer. I wrote in my scouting report last year, quote, he doesn't have much in the way of counter moves if he can't bend around the edge. And we didn't even really see him try to bend the edge very much. It was just lock out the arms, that power move that was never going to work. And I don't like how he was used by Smith, or I don't like how he was used by Sean Desai and by Matt Patricia. It really feels like his entire rookie season was wasted. In 4 years at Georgia, he had 135 total snaps in coverage, and he comes into the league and he's raw. And I felt like you use this guy, you don't have a big need to play him right now. So just let him focus on one thing. Like, Nolan, our goal for you this year is to learn a cross chop move. Our goal for you this year is to learn a ghost move, an inside spin move, whatever. We've got one move. That's what we're working on. We're going to put you in the game. You're going to throw that move 5 times a game, and we're going to see if we can get it down by the end of the year. Instead, we get him playing off-ball linebacker. We get him dropping into coverage. If you want a linebacker, just draft one. Like, don't draft an edge rusher in the first round.
You can do that?
Yeah, you could do that. Don't draft an edge rusher that dropped into coverage 135 times in his collegiate career and be like, hey, you're an off-ball linebacker this week, and next week we're going to put you back out on the edge. So I feel like his entire rookie season was mostly wasted because they threw way too much at a guy that was raw and needed to focus on one thing. And I think fans are going to have to be patient with that, because I kind of expect from Nolan Smith this year what I expected last year, and that's that he's not going to play a lot. And if he can get one thing down, that's going to be good. And you can argue whether that's a wise investment of a first-round pick, and a lot of it depends on, how that develops down the road. But I don't think he has much of a role this season, honestly. It'd be nice if he's able to get out there, but I just don't really see it. I see the year 2 being what year 1 should have been for me. Eric, what do you have?
I have a British idiom for Jonny.
Yes.
When I saw they were playing, I believe it was like a penny front with 5 linemen, and he was the middle linebacker just alone against the Giants, they lost the plot. So I knew at that point that it was over. Yeah, you like that?
I didn't even know that was a British idiom. There you go. I thought that was
Okay.
just a general phrase that you lot use as well. So that's another one that I had no clue about, which is great. I would just say as well, Shane, I'm not going to kill the guy. I feel like you were way more negative than I thought you two. I came in hard expecting you two to then bounce back against me, and no, you didn't. And Nick, I'll throw to you in a second if you mentioned you got a few points. I just think it is important to stay before we move on with Nolan. None of us are done with him. He's a rookie, and we've all mentioned how athletic he is. And sometimes players just develop. Coaching matters. It's a very cliche, but you can't teach athleticism. And there are things he can do that other players simply can't do. I just find it really interesting as a fan base how positive everyone is about him, and I think it's because he's such a good guy and he speaks really well in interviews, and I think he's really, really easy to root for. And don't get me wrong, I'm heavily rooting for him. I would much rather him become the best pass rusher in the world on my pre-draft scouting report, go up in flames. but I just didn't see it. And I think the scariest thing for me is going back to him dropping in coverage. I think he has to be like a hybrid player. I don't think he's going to be someone that's good at good at one specific thing. And if he can't learn how to drop in coverage, I feel like he's just a bit wasted. Nick, what did you want to add on that as well before we move on?
Yeah, I think things were a little unfortunate for him. I think expectations were sky high, and some of my videos that I've pointed out previously, like I was going through and looking at things like just Twitter, preseason takes. People were thinking he was going to get 15 sacks. That's a rookie record. I don't even know if he had 15 sacks in college. People were saying he was going to get more sacks than Hassan Reddick. I guess because he's a first round pick. I don't know. I think sometimes we just got to temper expectations on rookies, and especially a player like Nolan Smith. When you look at how he played at Georgia, I think there were 7 first round edge rushers the year he was drafted. He had the second lowest amount of total pass rush snaps, and then you include that on his pass rush snaps, a third of the time he's dropping into coverage, a third of the time they were running stunts, which is I think he can. That's something we should see more this year with Fangio, and he can be a little bit better with. And then the other times, then yes, he's rushing the passer. So even of his pass rush snaps, how many of them were true pass rush reps? This guy was a project really the whole time. And if you go into it with the expectations that he was a project and not expect him to come in here and be the day one starter, or even in year 2 be the guy getting the third most reps, and be patient and understand what he can become, then things are a little bit more positive. But if you're expecting him to come in and just, I've seen some people think he's going to unseat Josh Sweat and get more snaps than him. Again, we're getting back into this thing where we're ready for that next new thing, and just give the guy time and let him develop and grow.
All right, yeah, and like I said, I won't do it for time constraints. I could throw up several clips that I have on Twitter of Nolan Smith in run defense, because I do think that he was good at what he should have been good at, based on what we saw in college. So I'm not killing the guy. I think his situation was terrible, and I hope to see him develop